It's great to connect. So I'd love to. I'm just going to, for those people that are kind of listening in, we've got over kind of 200 people around the world. I just want to kind of frame the conversation first, and then introduce you, Robert, and then also to my right, Eamon. So this hangout isn't about the Web Summit. It's actually more about conferences in general and figuring out how you kind of maximize your investment in attending and your time. And we want to cover as many big and kind of little hacks that you guys have discovered over the years. So that's the kind of the basis of the hangout.
Buddy, he muted himself.
He's muted himself?
Yeah, that's cool.
All right.
Okay, so so then just for all those kind of tuning in, just to kind of my two guests, Robert is perhaps the most influential kind of tech blogger in the world. He's truly passionate about startups and has an exceptional depth of experience attending conferences of all sizes and all types with lots of different hats on, whether that's as a speaker, whether that's as an attendee, or as a blogger. And then to my right is Eamon Leonard. He's an entrepreneur and investor who's built, sold, and invested in lots of companies and has attended lots of conferences as a startup, as an investor, as an entrepreneur, and has also organized some fantastic conferences. And then my experience is really first as kind of a startup, attending other conferences, and then more recently starting a conference and going to lots of other conferences, obsessed with looking at the small details of other conferences from all different sectors, even tractor conferences that I've been to, in terms of how they actually improve the experience and the value for attendees, and then trying to work that into our own conferences. So that's kind of the background. So Robert, I'd love to turn to you first, and just kind of ask you kind of at a high level, what do you see as the point of conferences, and why do you think people should attend them?
Well, first of all, my wife and I used to run conferences in the 1990s for programmers, so I've seen it from inside the conference and outside the conference, and as an attendee, as a lobby conner, somebody who doesn't have a ticket and is sneaking in. I've done it all. The point is, I mean, there's a few points. Serious point is you go there to learn, right? You're there to try to get knowledge about something that you don't yet not have knowledge of, and that's why I go to CES or South by Southwest or Web Summit or Founders, right? It's because I'm typically there to try to learn something that I don't yet know. So if I need to learn about Node.js, I might go to a conference that's about that. If I'm trying to learn how to manage people, I might go to a management conference. If I'm trying to learn photography, I'll go to the photo marketing show and hang out with those people. The second thing, and in fact some conferences have noticed that the networking is what most people are there for. In fact, David Hornick has a conference called The Lobby because he noticed people were just standing in the lobby talking all day long, so he said get rid of the conference and let's just have the lobby and talk and have networking events in a cool place, and that certainly is important. In fact, I was thinking, what is my first piece of advice if I was going to Founders or Web Summit? Have somebody cover the Founders at night and somebody cover the Founders at day, and that's what I did, because there was a Founders going or a Web Summit going all night long in Dublin, and I learned a lot by doing that because I'm hanging out with some of the best entrepreneurs the world has seen, and often you find out the real tips while you're talking to them over a beer, right?
And so before you come to a conference, do you have any kind of golden rules in terms of preparations? I'll preface that by saying I remember last year we did a hangout with Alex Hawkins, who just sold SmartThings to Samsung, and he said for every hour he was on the ground at a conference, on average he did about 3 hours preparation, and that took a huge number of people by surprise. And he talked through a little bit of some of the kind of preparation that he'd do in advance. For you,
certainly if you're there to network, you have to do those meetings ahead of time, and that is a form of preparation. I mean, I'm already starting to schedule things for the Consumer Electronics Show, which happens in January, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm already signed up for several things that's happening at South by Southwest in March of next year. So I call that preparation. And then certainly I'm looking through the classes, looking through the speaker list, seeing who would probably be the best use of my time in sitting down and listening to somebody. That before I got to TED, for instance, that's exactly what I did. I looked over that schedule with a very fine-tooth comb, looking for which ones I certainly cannot miss. Because there's some speeches, you can be out in the lobby talking to somebody much more interesting than is on stage. In fact, at TED, I was hanging out with Bill Gates out in the lobby for 45 minutes listening to him talk to people about nuclear power, right? Wow. And that was far more interesting to me than what was going on stage at that time. But there's other speakers who I definitely did not want to miss, even though the networking out in the lobby was a very high quality.
Great. Eamon, as a startup attending conferences, what kind of preparation would you advise in advance?
Well,
I'm just gonna ask Eamon, Robert, just for a second to my right here.
Sorry to stay for a second there, Robert. So my experience with being a startup at a conference first came about in 2009 at TechCrunch 50 in San Francisco, and myself and my co-founder took the trip from Dublin to San Francisco, and we were probably 3 or 4 months into actually, starting work on the product and figuring out some stuff. And we had software built, but we had never really showed it to anybody, and we didn't even know what our value proposition was. I mean, how to phrase it. We didn't understand what our go-to-market strategy should be. Pricing was not even a thought at the time, and elevator pitch, investor deck. These are all things that we were totally unprepared for, and we saw going to a conference as an opportunity to get prepared for it, to get to cram all the type of feedback that you could take 2 or 3 months to acquire just through meeting people over coffee or whatever, to cram that into 3 or 4 days of concentrated activities. And it's incredibly emotionally draining, and it's a bit of a roller coaster ride. But if I was to go back, we were totally unprepared, and when hindsight's a great thing. There was things that we should have done that we didn't do. We were barely able to get. I think what TechCrunch 50 did, that's Disrupt now, as a precursor to Disrupt. I think what they did, and what they maybe still do, is you get a cocktail table and room for pull-up, and we were just about able to get our shit together to have a pull-up.
Yeah.
It
depends on your goal. As a startup, are you so early stage that you're raising money? I remember several people going to TED and coming home and saying, "I just got funded." And I'm like, "How did that happen?" And he goes, "Well, there's a lot of billionaires there." And I'm sitting next to somebody, and I'm explaining my idea, and they get excited, and and they're feeding off of my excitement, and boom.
So you just spoke about how you're planning meetings now for CES and even for South by in March, and so in some cases you're kind of contacting people, maybe it's over email, or maybe it's Facebook, or maybe it's Twitter, just for some of the people.
And they're contacting me too.
Yeah, on both ways. So, what's a good email? What does a good email look like? I mean, is it 6 paragraphs long? Is it what's important?
In fact, the best people are talking to me on Facebook, and they're not trying to write a press release. All you need is, "Hey, I know you're going to CES. I'm going to CES. Here's my goal. Can you help? Can I meet you? Can you introduce me to somebody?" Right? One sentence. It's because people like me are very, very busy, and so don't ask for 50 things. Have a very clear ask, and make it fun for me to chat with you. Some people send me emails that are 15 pages long, and it's too dense to figure out. But when you called me and asked me to come to Web Summit, it was just, "Hey, dude, you want to party with Bono?" I think that was. You know, and I was like, yeah, I do want to party with Bono. Oh, yeah, can you do a speech for me too? Yeah, I can do a speech for you too. Oh, can I introduce you to the press? Oh, sure. three sentences got a lot done, right? You don't have to get very much more complicated than that, right?
And does the same apply for you? So you're wandering around a conference, and people are coming up to you all the time, and they're trying to kind of, they're trying to engage you. What advice do you give to people in terms of trying to engage an investor, engage a journalist? What are the general rules of thumb from your experience?
Look in their eyes and see if they're running to go and give a speech. Because sometimes I get pitched on the way where I have a deadline. I have to be somewhere in 5 minutes, and you're trying to pitch me in a time when I'm not able to sit and listen to you. So ask, hey, can I spend 3 minutes of your time right now? Sure. Then have a very clear one-sentence description of what makes you what you do. Hey, I'm building a company that's going to be the Uber of drones or whatever your pitch is. Huh, okay. And what makes you different? Well, if you're in a crowded space, like Google was the 17th search engine, right? Their pitch was, we have this new thing. Can you just try your favorite search in it? And I did. And I said, how did you get rid of the porn? Because my favorite site search back then was NetMeeting, right? Because I had a NetMeeting website and I knew it in depth. And I said, how did you get rid of the porn? And then we spent an hour talking about PageRank and how it worked, and what makes this thing special, and where did it come from, and all that. But you have to hook me in 30 seconds, right? And this is true. If you're not that way with your family and with your friends, you're not going to get people excited about your company. You have to be very able to do an elevator pitch, a 1-minute pitch where you get people excited, right? My friend Saeed, who runs a Plug and Play Accelerator here and has hundreds of companies in there, he said he funded somebody literally in the elevator on the way down. So $380,000 check was written in literally 3 minutes because he got excited by an idea. And sometimes you'll meet people like this. When you're drinking with Bono, have something to say to the guy. Think about it. Let's say you have 5 minutes with Bono. What would you ask him? Have an ask. Okay. You never know. Magic can happen. I talked Steve Wozniak out of 40 grand when I was in journalism school, right? You never know when somebody's going to change your life, and you have to be prepared. I would be prepared with a slide deck on your phone or iPad so you can show it, right? Yep. Be prepared with business cards. They're still needed, even though I hate them. Or, at least know your LinkedIn account or Facebook account. If you have some stickers that are small, hand those out. Those are memorable. My friend Andy Grignon, who's running a new startup, and I think he might even be at Web Summit, built a book about his company. So he'll pitch you for a couple minutes, and then if he thinks you're really interesting, he'll hand you a book and say, go read the book. And you're not going to throw that book away because it's a collector's item. It's beautiful. It was designed by the guy who designed the iPod. And he has his entire company story in there, customer quotes, user interface, competitive advantages, who's on board in terms of team members, who's on board in terms of investors, what's the market size, all the usual kind of stuff that you do in a slide deck, right? But he hands you a book, so it's very memorable when you get a book like that because it's different. If somebody hands me a really nice business card that's different, like Steve Wozniak hands me these dye sublimated, laser cut metal cards. I used to have one over here, and they're very memorable. It's like even if it's not Steve Wozniak, getting a card like that is memorable. It's like, where did this thing come from, and why is this guy spending so much money on cards, right?
So I have a few then kind of quick questions. I'll just go to Eamon first. So my instinct naturally going to a conference now is, oh, I'll stay in an Airbnb. I talk to some, pretty successful serial entrepreneurs, and their view is, I think you should try and stay in the hotel where everybody is staying. Eamon, what's your view on that?
I think wherever you're staying, as long as you're close to the critical mass of people and you're prepared to camp out.
Yep.
Do whatever's within your budget.
Yep.
So even if it's younger entrepreneurs, friends of mine are not too proud to reach out to the network and see whose couch can I crash on.
I stayed in the Las Vegas hostel even when I worked at Microsoft, even though I had an expense account, because I wanted to stay with a friend who was staying there, right? And it was a fun experience. It was a little different. It's a story now, right?
Also get the local experience as well.
Yeah, you meet people. I mean, when I interviewed at Microsoft on the way back, I was on the last row in I think Alaska Airlines, and I was sitting next to somebody, and I look at him, and he has a black. This was 11 years ago. He had a BlackBerry on it. I go, oh, he's probably a geek. Start talking to him. Hey, what do you do? Oh, I run engineering for Amazon. Oh, really? What's your name? Larry Tesler. Oh, you were an executive at Apple. I knew something about him. Oh, yeah. And then we spent 2 hours talking about, business and stuff like that. You never know where the really interesting meeting is going to come from. In fact, coming over to Web Summit, usually everybody's on the same flight, or same 3 flights. So you're pretty, even inside the airport on the way to the conference, you're networking, you're hanging out. Oh, there's Tony Conrad. Hey, Tony, what's going on? And all of a sudden you're talking about what he's investing in and what's going on in his world, and he's making coffee for you. Seriously, Tony Conrad is a coffee freak. He carries his own little custom French press and his own custom coffee beans that he paid like $100 for, and he'll make you coffee, and it's a lot better than United Airlines coffee, let me tell you.
and so when different conferences, heading out at nighttime matters. So certainly for I can only speak to kind of Web Summit in particular. We try to keep the conference going from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. But I'm just wondering.
I was walking back into the elevator at 7 a.m. and my co-author Shell was walking out of the elevator to go running and go to the conference. I would go, Nighttime Founders is over, Daytime Founders is starting. And he was going to the Daytime Founders, and I was going to the Nighttime Founders. And we were out till 7 a.m.
So in terms of the kind of rules of engagement at 7 a.m. in the morning at a conference, Eamon, I'm just wondering,
so it's all about the walk of shame.
So what in your experience, how do you kind of seek out value as an attendee, late at night at a city at any conference? What do you think there are things that change? I can certainly talk to some of the things that I can do.
Yeah, I think there's way. I mean, sometimes people will tweet or Instagram where they are people that Twitter's about connecting with people you want to know. Facebook's about connecting with people you already know. So there's Twitter lists out there of people who are speaking already that are or the type of people that you want to meet. And so it's sometimes these people will check in, sometimes they'll Instagram, sometimes they'll tweet. And I don't want to call it stalking, but let's call it engineered serendipity, right? Where you can be a bit smart about it. There's a bit of luck involved as well, but there's also the referral part of it. So you could bump into somebody who knows somebody and have person.
Not only that, but when you're when you're in the lobby during lunch or in between a session, you get literally 2 minutes with everybody at most. And there's a lot of opportunity cost. When I'm talking to you, Patty, Bono might be walking behind you, right? And all of a sudden, Patty doesn't seem all that interesting to talk to anymore. I want to go hang out with him and shake his hand, right? And there's a lot of opportunity costs, and that's not a really good way to get to know somebody. But if we go out to a pub with 5 or 6 people and we stay out till midnight or 1 or 2, all of a sudden you're getting to know that person in much deeper level, and that it sets up a whole bunch of things, right? Relationships uh, that continue as friendships, or business relationships that get really deep really quickly, right? Because all of a sudden they're trusting you, and they're all of a sudden bringing you in as a as an XYZ, investor, technical co-founder, et cetera, right?
So yeah, let me talk. I'm going to talk about a few. Over the last 4 years, persuading so many people to fly all the way to Ireland when there was no precedent to fly to Ireland, I kind of developed my own set of kind of hacks for late at night. So one of the things I found that was from 6 p.m. to 12 p.m. at most conferences around the world, there tended to be organized dinners and parties that people had to go to. So Phil Libin could be doing the Evernote party, and if I'm not on the list, I'm not going to get in. But come midnight, people tended to disperse, and they kind of found themselves in little kind of hotel bars. And if you just track down those little hotel bars, everybody tended to be a little bit more inebriated, a little bit more open to meeting people. And a 12 to 3 a.m. slot, in my experience, was this kind of magical moment where you would just somehow, using some kind of spidey sense, figure out the hotel, like the W Hotel in Austin, or the Four Seasons, where you should probably just kind of go and have a whiskey. I would try and always kind of do a buddy system, so kind of walking around on my own. I'm sometimes a little bit shy, but when you're with somebody else, it kind of sometimes helps both of you to introduce people to other people. So those are certainly two things.
When I was at the World Economic Forum, I would get up every morning really early because it was such an important event in my life. You don't get invited there very often, if at all. Very few people get to go. And so I would, and I knew I was in the hotel with Reid Hoffman and Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg and a whole bunch of geeks. All the technology award winners were in that hotel. And at 7 a.m., Mark Zuckerberg taps me on the shoulder. I turn around and I go, "Oh, hi, Mark." And he goes, "Hey, you want to take a walk?" And sure. Close up my laptop and go, "I'm ready. Let's go." And I spent 3 hours with him without a PR person, without an entourage around him trying to get his attention. And I learned so much about him and his company on that walk that it's invaluable even today, right? He's still a Facebook friend, and I still probably can get his attention if I have something of value to him. That's the magic, right? Tony Conrad nails it as a hack. He makes coffee for people. And it's quite extraordinary coffee because it's coffee that was hand-picked by him and handmade, and it's his thing. And so if you go up to him and say, "Hey, dude, I hear you have coffee. When's the next opportunity?" And all of a sudden you're sitting there talking with him and talking with other cool entrepreneurs. And boom, you're building a relationship that is very deep and very interesting. Whether or not it leads to a business thing, it's just now you have a friendship with somebody who's doing something extraordinary in life, right? Yeah. Same thing. I remember before I came to Web Summit, the year before, Mike Butcher kept posting pictures of him hanging out with Bono, right? I've met Bono before. I met him at Davos, right? But I shook his hand and said hi, and then he was off, and his entourage moved him along, right? But it's very rare you get to talk to somebody like that for any length of time, and that leads to fun stories and stuff like that. And it also leads to interesting connections because he might be getting excited about your startup, and he goes, you should talk to XYZ guy. Right over there is the guy who could actually make it happen, And boom, all of a sudden you're in, right?
So I have we've got about 4 minutes left if we're to just to kind of stay in time. We start about 5 minutes late. So I'm just wondering, Eamon, so kind of post the event, you tend to leave with a huge amount of business cards and then other people that you just kind of connected with. I'll go to Eamon first and then to you, Robert, to kind of wrap up. What does kind of successful post-conference follow-up look like?
I scan most of the business cards, If I remember, if I was smart, I wrote on the back sort of what we talked about. I'm usually not that smart. I'm usually not that disciplined. But a lot of times we'll start chatting with each other on Facebook right there during the conversation. I say that this is the best way to talk with me, and it's a fast, iterative way, and I can also tell you about parties tomorrow night and stuff like that. So I'll get you on Facebook, and that generally leads to if there was a task that came out of this, I'll write it right there, and I'll remember it that way. Or I'll email myself really quickly and say, hey, I just promised Patty that I would do X, Y, Z. So I'll later, when I'm in a place where I'm more in front of my calendars and my email and stuff like that, and in a place where I can think through what I need to say to you further, then I'll take it up. But you need to have a system to remind yourself what you talked about. My boss actually folds the business card in different ways depending on if you're a customer or a potential customer or somebody you need to follow up on. So he'll fold a different corner.
Okay.
So that when he gets back to his hotel room, and he's not drunk anymore, he'll remember, oh, that guy was a customer, I have to say thank you. And that guy or that girl needed help with their hosting, and so I need to get back to them, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to have a little system to get value out of your business cards, because, if you don't, you're going to get home with 200 business cards in a stack, and you're going to go, I don't even remember meeting this person. What do I do with this? You're not going to get as much value out of it.
So for Eamon, I'm just going to ask Eamon if you have any specifics around kind of post-conference follow-up.
Yeah, I use Full Contact to find out more about their social presence, their social media presence, follow them on Twitter, Facebook.
Yeah.
But with Full Contact, you can just throw their email address in and you'll get a maybe a 60-70% match. But I think, the folding the cards is genius. Separating the pockets. The ones I really, really need to put into my left pocket, the ones I'll take a little bit longer, put them in the right pocket.
Wow. Yeah, I've got one or two things that I've really learned. I've always been so blown away by some really successful entrepreneurs. The amount they still continue to hustle when they go to an event, that they have this kind of, some of them, one or two of a mantra that I'll sleep on the plane on the way back, and they literally are going from 7 a.m. in the morning until maybe 4 a.m. the next day, and they do that 2 and 3 days in a row, and they just don't stop meeting and hustling.
I remember Liam Casey is one of my favorite entrepreneurs. He runs PCH in Shenzhen and grew up in Ireland. He called me one Sunday and he goes, I have something to show you. And I said, dude, I'm leaving to go somewhere. I forget where I was going. I'm going to Tel Aviv tonight. He goes, I'll meet you at the airport. And at 11 p.m., he met me at 9. My flight was at 11. At 9, he meets me at the airport. That's the style of hustle that the top-end entrepreneurs do. And they do it even though they're rich and even though they've been successful. They keep hustling like that. And, when you're around people who make the world work, it's a highly leverageable moment, right? And so, lack of sleep is part of it. When I went to World Economic Forum, I slept 3 hours every night because it was so important. Every moment in that place was extraordinary, And same thing with founders, right? Every moment, I don't get to talk to Matt Mullenweg here in San Francisco. We both lived, 45 minutes from each other. I never see him here. He's always too busy. But I spent, 5 hours drinking with him and 15 other people in the lobby, last year. And you're not going to go to sleep if that's the case, because I can sleep some other time. Yeah. By the way, Tom Keene says to say hi to Tom in Cork, the real capital of Ireland. Yeah, he knew that was going to laugh. But that's what's going on in real time, right? We're having a worldwide conversation with each other on Facebook, on Twitter. on Google Plus, on Elo now. You know, it's pretty easy to get to each other now, and so you got to provide some value and put yourself in play for happy accidents to happen.
Well, to Eamon and to Robert, thanks so much. It's been great. Really eye-opening, and Robert, I look forward to seeing you and Bono in Dublin in November. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Bye.